Today on Legally Us, Angelina Jolie sued the FBI for answers about Brad Pitt's alleged 2016 assault. Amber Heard fires her legal team in her appeal against Johnny Depp, and a trial date is set in Samantha Markle's case against her half-sister, Meghan Markle. We're breaking it all down in today's Legally Us. All right, welcome to Legally Us, a brand new show here at Us Weekly where we break down all the latest legal drama with your favorite stars. Joining me each and every week is Nima Rahmani, a former federal prosecutor and president of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Nima, so excited to be joined by you again this week. We have a lot to get to.
Hi, Christina. Glad to be on again. Let's jump in.
Everybody's talking about Angelina Jolie because she has reportedly been revealed as the plaintiff in an anonymous lawsuit filed against the FBI over the agency's investigation into Brad Pitt. So to break this all down a little bit, according to Puck, Angelina filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit back in March, requesting records related to the 2016 plane incident that, of course, led to their whirlwind divorce, which has been going on for years. So she previously requested that the case remain sealed, but now that the court documents have become public earlier this month when she filed an amended complaint. So in the documents obtained by Us Weekly, Jane Doe claimed that she had been seeking the withheld information for years in an effort to ensure that her children receive the care and counseling they need to address harm suffered. The complaint also described Jane Doe as a victim of the assault herself and alleged that the FBI has hampered and continues to hamper her efforts to obtain for her children necessary ongoing care and medical attention. Yikes. Okay, so first and foremost, what exactly is a Freedom of Information Act?
Christina, there's a general rule that government documents are public and they're accessible to the parties, the victims, even members of the press. So the federal government has a Freedom of Information Act. Certain states have Public Records Act, but they essentially say the same thing, that government documents are public and they should be provided to the parties in the case and anyone else who reasonably accesses them or wants to access them.
Interesting. So what was your reaction when you first read this, that she is...
My reaction was that Angelina should be able to get the documents related to her case. But as far as suing the FBI and getting money, that's not going to be a good case at all. It's pretty well established that law enforcement agencies have immunity, which means that they can't be sued or don't have to pay out unless there's a specific legal duty. And this is for not acting. So the kind of classic case when George Floyd and his family members sued for those specific actions, it was because the police officers didn't provide medical aid. That's a duty that they have. But generally speaking, when law enforcement doesn't do something, they can't be sued because of it.
So why would she sue the FBI then?
So the FBI took a report because this happened, in the friendly skies. So that's federal jurisdiction. And they presented the case to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Those are federal prosecutors. That's actually where I used to work. And they rejected the case. So by rejecting the case, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. They just decided that it wasn't a good use of government resources, particularly federal government resources, to prosecute Brad Pitt in what ultimately was a family law dispute. Now, Angelina wants the documents probably because she wants to use that as evidence in her upcoming civil lawsuit against her ex-husband.
Got it. So do you think that the FBI, will they give her these court documents? Because she said, I think what they gave her, she feels like they were hampered with and, so it wasn't the full documents that she is looking for, correct?
It wasn't. And generally speaking, one of the exceptions to the Freedom of Information Act is if there's an ongoing criminal investigation. Well, it's pretty clear that the investigation is closed. It was many years ago. The U.S. Attorney's Office isn't going to prosecute Brad Pitt. So they really should provide those reports and those documents to Angelina. Now, she could have subpoenaed them as part of her civil case, but what she's doing is trying to go after the FBI directly. Again, I don't think it's a winner, but hopefully she gets the documents and the evidence that she wants.
Right. Do you think that this is because she says in the documents that this is so her children can move forward and they can understand and, not be, give them the care that they need? Do you think that she's doing this for the children or is she doing this to hurt Brad Pitt?
I think it's a little bit of both. She's using her children to hurt Brad Pitt. And one of the ways you can file a Jane Doe lawsuit, which is what she did, is if you're involved minors, right? So minors' names are protected. They're generally not public. The other would be if she was the victim of sexual assault. I don't see those allegations there. But obviously, as a public figure, we know that Angelina wants to keep things private. Her divorce was initially private. It was with a private judge. It was with an arbitrator. It wasn't a public divorce that you typically have. So I think by using the kids, one, she wants to protect their privacy, but she's trying to also gain leverage against her ex-husband in a lawsuit that's going to be worth in excess of $100 million, because that winery they own together in Europe, it's worth a lot of money, Christina.
Yeah, it's worth a lot of money. I mean, it just seems like there's layers upon layers about this case that have been going on forever. I mean, you know, the FBI revealed that they did not pursue this case due to several factors. I mean, what could those potential factors be? I know you said because of money and things like that, but what were those factors, and why did they not tell Angelina that they were closing the case and make it public before they did that?
Yeah, that's something that they should have done. And if she's the victim of a crime, even if she's making an accusation, she has a right to be informed. And that's under federal law, state law in California, Marcy's law. But ultimately, the FBI didn't make the decision. Prosecutors made the decision. So all the FBI can do is take a report and present it to lawyers. Lawyers decide whether to take the case or not. And generally speaking, prosecutors don't like to get involved in civil lawsuits. They're messy. And there's a perception that people are misusing our criminal justice system to gain leverage over an ex-husband, a wife, or some other adversary in a civil case.
Yeah. So where does this go from here?
Well, Angelina Jolie has control over her own legal destiny, and that's that civil lawsuit. So she's going to get this evidence, but we know that that case is going to trial. I don't see any type of settlement between Brad and Angelina. There's too much money at stake. It's too nasty. And ultimately, Brad is trying to prevent her from selling her share to a Russian oligarch. So there's a lot of moving pieces here, and I fully expect this case to go to trial. And Angelina is trying to line up her ducks, her witnesses, and her evidence to win that case. And I think she has the upper hand right now.
Does she? I was going to say, who is kind of in the lead right now, because it seems like it sometimes goes back and forth. I know a lot of people were surprised that she kind of pulled the rug out from underneath Brad during, the sale of the Miraval. But now it seems like you said, she's kind of lining everything up to go in for that, to go in for the kill.
Yeah, Angelina is in the lead, and this is why. As a partner in any type of business, you generally have the right to sell your share unless there's a specific agreement between you and your partner or partners that prevents you from doing so. In this particular case, there was no written agreement that prevents Angelina from selling her share. So what Brad is trying to argue is that there was a verbal agreement, or maybe it was written on a napkin somewhere.
Right.
That's going to be a very tough hill for his lawyers to climb and to prove that there was a verbal agreement, especially when you're dealing with pretty sophisticated A-list actors and actresses who have a lot of money and a lot of lawyers. So absent some very specific written agreement that prohibits the sale, Angelina can sell to whoever she wants.
So going back to the FBI case, so she is suing the FBI for these documents. Can the FBI come back and say no? Like what if she is denied this, what will happen? And is that even a possibility?
I think the FBI, who's represented by the Department of Justice, has essentially said, no, your complaint is not meritorious. And that's why she probably had to file an amended complaint. Again, it's very difficult to sue the government, law enforcement, for failure to act. Again, you can subpoena the documents, you can get those documents, but to sue and get paid and get money damages, not going to happen for Angelina or the kids.
So she was denied the initial request, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. So she made a Freedom of Information or a FOIA Act request. The FBI apparently denied it. Again, probably because there was a pending investigation. Well, if that investigation is closed, they really should be providing those documents to Angelina. And I think this is an effort to get the documents. Again, very different cases, but we saw what happened with former President Donald Trump. Sometimes you go in because you want documents. Other times you're actually going to move forward with a civil or criminal case. And I think this is really about getting the documents for Angelina and not trying to get money from the government.
Right. But suspect because the case is closed and as to why they wouldn't give it to her, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they should. If the criminal investigation is closed, and by all accounts it is, it's a U.S. attorney reject, it's time for the FBI to turn over the documents.
Very, very strange. And like you said, I mean, it's been going on for years, but also just getting started. It's kind of crazy that this has been dragged out for so long. I mean, do you see cases like this when it's such a bitter, bitter divorce that will go on for, 6 years at this point?
I do, and we just saw it with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Obviously, it was a defamation case, but let's be honest, it was really a long, extended divorce trial. The parties entered into a settlement. They said that they were not going to defame each other, say anything negative about each other, and it continued. So guess what? They ended up in civil court there in Virginia. But ultimately, if you kind of peel it back, it wasn't as much of a defamation case as it was a divorce case that spilled over into civil court. And the same exact thing is happening with Brad and Angelina. You're talking about a property that they bought before they were married. They got married there, actually, and they were unable to come to a resolution during their very acrimonious divorce. And that's why we're seeing the civil lawsuit.
Messy, messy. Well, speaking of Amber Heard, she actually just hired a new legal team in her appeal against Johnny Depp. She is replacing her trial lawyer, Elaine Bredehoft, with First Amendment attorneys David Axelrod and Jay Ward Brown. So they released a statement saying, "We welcome the opportunity to represent Ms. Heard in this appeal, as it is a case with important First Amendment implications for every American. We're confident the appellate court will apply the law properly without deference to popularity, reverse the judgment against Ms. Heard, and reaffirm the fundamental principles of freedom of speech." So why would she fire? I mean, obviously she lost a case, but why would she fire her trial attorneys? Is that something that's unusual when going into appeal?
It's not unusual, but there's a couple of reasons. One, respectfully, Elaine Bredehoft didn't do that good of a job. We all saw her on social media fumbling over even some of the most basic objections. And the skill sets required to be a trial lawyer to argue to a jury are very different from those who argue appeals. Appellate lawyers tend to be better writers. You're dealing with judges as opposed to jurors who are ordinary people. So oftentimes there are lawyers who do trial work and there's lawyers that do appellate work. So it's not surprising that Amber Heard, with her back against the wall and looking at a multi-million-dollar judgment, is trying to hire a top-notch appellate team, especially when you're dealing with the First Amendment, which is a very niche issue under the law.
Yeah. So what exactly is a First Amendment attorney? Is that a clear title for somebody?
Yeah, this is an attorney that understands the First Amendment, particularly free speech. And what Amber Heard is trying to argue is that her op-ed in the Washington Post was protected by the First Amendment. Therefore, it can't be defamatory. If an appellate court agrees with her, then they may vacate Johnny Depp's judgment and either dismiss the case entirely or send it back for a new jury trial. So it's a little bit of a Hail Mary, but her back is against the wall. Amber Heard doesn't seem to have the assets to pay this judgment. I don't think she's working right now, doesn't have a whole lot of property. And these types of claims generally aren't dischargeable in bankruptcy. If you do an intentional act, something that's malicious, Chapter 7, 11, or 13 won't get rid of that debt. So her appeal is her best chance, even though it's not a good chance, of getting this judgment reversed.
Yeah, I mean, that was my next question. I mean, like you said, this is kind of like a Hail Mary. This is probably not going to work in her favor.
Probably not. And, there are legal reasons why she's doing this. We've talked about that big judgment, but also PR reasons. I mean, she came out looking so bad after the trial. It's going to be very hard to get work, certainly by any major Hollywood studio, because a lot of folks would boycott any role that she's in. So she needs to try to get this judgment reversed, come back for a new trial, and maybe she'll do better the second time around.
Right. I mean, like you said, how, like you said, you can't chapter file for bankruptcy. So how will she pay this $10 million? I mean, does that happen a lot where, you get these huge settlements and these people can't pay the money? So what does happen in those cases?
Yeah, what happens is, and it's ultimately up to Johnny Depp, is he really going to try to enforce this judgment and go after his ex-wife? But if he wants to do so, there's usually 3 ways to do so. First is garnish wages. Well, Amber Heard has to be working for those wages to be garnished. Second is levy bank accounts, which is to take money out of her bank account. Third is attach and sell real property, like a home or a condo that she may own. Again, I don't think she has the assets. I don't know if Elon Musk is going to step up and pay this off for her, or she's going to sue her lawyer who actually advised her to go ahead and move forward with this op-ed. But I don't think she's got millions of dollars sitting around in a bank account somewhere to pay off Johnny Depp.
No, I don't think so either. Do you feel like he will go after her for this money, or do you think that it was just a principle for him getting the legal win?
I think it was more the principle and for him to clear his name. He had essentially been canceled, right? Mm-hmm. Now that his reputation has been restored and he's one of the most sought after actors in Hollywood, I mean, he could make this on one movie or one big endorsement. So I don't think Johnny Depp is actually going to try to collect this money, but we'll see. if Amber Heard keeps pursuing this, she keeps making defamatory statements, maybe he tries to teach her a lesson. And these judgments under Virginia law, they're good for 10 years and they can be renewed for another 10-year term.
I know. I know that there's probably so many things that you probably would have done differently in this case, but what was kind of like the one glaring thing that went wrong in this case that you would have done differently?
I think Amber Heard needed to be more honest and likable. She lied about things that really weren't relevant to the case, like donating the $7 million to charity. Had she just said, listen, folks, I was planning to do so. I was sued by my ex-husband. I needed the money to pay for my lawyers. I think that would have been more believable than for her to say that she pledged it, or for her to say that she didn't tip off TMZ when it was clear that the video came from her phone. Again, these were issues that had nothing to do with her being the victim of domestic violence. Same thing with drug abuse. She only said that she used it one time on the plane. I think if she was a little more honest about some things that weren't necessarily relevant to the claims in the case, she would have come across more likable and more credible. And also when it came to the abuse, I think she made a mistake by saying that she only hit Depp once. I think it was clear that it was a mutually violent, toxic, volatile relationship. And had she come in with a little bit more nuance and said, listen, this was something that I bear some responsibility for. I was violent on occasions. I too abused drugs and alcohol. I was verbally abusive. It was mutually abusive. We were both victims. I think she would have gotten a lot farther with her jurors, Christina.
I think so too. Well, we'll have to see what happens in appellate court. Well, this has been going on. Another case that has been going on for quite some time is Samantha Markle versus her half-sister, Samantha Markle versus her half-sister, Meghan Markle. So Judge Charlene Honeywell set a date for October of 2023 for the trial of this case. She said in a statement, the purpose of this order is to discourage wasteful pretrial activities and to secure the just, speedy, and inexpensive determination of this action. She said that she is doing filing deadlines and estimated a trial length of just 5 days. Of course, Samantha is suing because she feels Meghan caused her emotional stress by claiming she was raised as an only child during her 2021 CBS interview. Meghan's lawyers have countered, saying that she simply bore a feeling of having been raised alone and did not assert it as a fact. I mean, is this sort of like a defamation case as well? And will it be hard for Samantha to prove that she felt a certain way, that Meghan made her feel a certain way?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a silly case, but it's a defamation case. And, Samantha's biggest challenge is going to be able to prove her damages, right? So her sister said that she felt like an only child. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Samantha had therapy or experienced some other emotional distress as a result of her sister's book or Oprah interview, but really, what are the damages there? At least Johnny Depp was able to argue that he lost Pirate 6 and all these other roles because of the op-ed. So, when you ever deal with a civil case, the first part is liability. Did the other person do something wrong? But the second is damages. So really, what are her damages here? Is she trying to send a message to her half-sister? Is she trying to get media attention? But the reason the judge set a trial date and isn't going to move it is that trial date puts pressure on both sides to settle. That's probably what's going to happen in this case, because again, it's not a very high-value defamation claim.
Right. Do you think that she will be awarded a significant sum in this case?
I don't think so. Even if she wins, jurors there in Florida will probably award a nominal or a modest sum. You're not going to get millions of dollars because your sister said she felt like an only child. I know Samantha's lawyers are going to argue that she said she was an only child, but really, if your sibling says something like that, how much damage does that really cause?
Right. I mean, if it does go to trial, would Prince Harry ever be dragged into this case? Do you ever feel like he would be asked to testify on Meghan's behalf?
Potentially. So in criminal cases, you can sometimes prevent your spouse from testifying, but you don't have a lot of those same protections in a civil lawsuit. So he may well get dragged into this, again, if it goes to trial next year.
Did you ever watch Meghan in Suits?
I did. I went to Harvard Law School, so how can I not?
How can you not? Did you think she did a good job?
I think she did great. So we'll see. I expect her, if she does have to testify, I think she'll be a good witness at trial.
Definitely. Well, Nima, thank you so much. I always appreciate your expertise and insight. We now understand these cases, so I really appreciate it. And please, everybody, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you on Team Brad, Team Angelina, Team Johnny, Team Amber? So many things, so many ways that these cases can go. So I really appreciate you bringing it all down, Nima. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Great being on as always, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week. For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.